Jay and Kajan are specialized in operation improvements through DevOps, process automation, observability. It's a very interesting topic where they're going to cover the latest development in AI and how to improve observability with tracing OpenAPI. Over to you.
Thank you.
Will be a couple of minutes until we set up. So whilst we're setting up, just for everyone's interest, if you've come here thinking this is an open API talk, this is not open API, this is OpenAI, just to confirm.
And we may accidentally say OpenAPI instead of OpenAI.
I've promised him to buy him a beer every time I mention OpenAPI instead of that. So let's see how we go. There you go. Perfect. It's always very hard when you do all these settings right at the front.
You guys trying to extend this?
That's it, yeah, please. That's all right, we'll survive. Just go full screen from here and should be all right.
It'll automatically go to us.
Okay. Perfect. So we're ready. So as mentioned earlier, so if you've come here for the story of OpenAPI, this is the wrong room. We're here to talk about OpenAI and GPT-3 and how it has formed over the years, what it entails. Before we get started, though, on the topic, a quick introduction of me. So I'm the dude on the bottom right. The photo is without the glasses. I'm here with glasses. But in my short period in IT, I worked at a lot of companies. I worked at a small company called IBM before, then worked at CA Technologies, for those of you who still remember them. Most recently, I worked at Nginx, and that's where I did a lot of work around OpenAPI, well, APIs in general. That's me in a nutshell. Currently work for New Relic, but I'll pass the mic over to Kaj to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So Kajan Moorthy, so I'm a senior solutions consultant at New Relic. So I've been at New Relic for about 2.5, nearly 3 years now. And before I joined New Relic, I actually worked probably about 12 years in consulting. And so during that time, we're helping customers transform, how they built applications, move from on-prem monolithic applications to cloud-based microservices. And the reason why I joined New Relic was during seeing a lot of those transformations, it was really apparent that when you actually go through that transformation, it's really important to be able to understand how your applications are actually running, have that visibility, have that observability practice. And so that's kind of where New Relic comes into the picture, and we're going to talk about OpenAI and how observability actually fits into that as well.
Thanks, Kaj. We've got a very short time, and I think this is the agenda, what we have. So who's here to learn about cool things? I see a few hands up. Hey, I see every hand up. That's awesome. That's brilliant. That's what you uncover. So quick agenda. What we'll go through is we did a very quick experiment on OpenAI. We'll take you through the experiment. It's actually a cool experiment. We'll talk about what OpenAPI is and talk about what GPT-3 is, the version 3 of it. And towards the end, Kaj will take us through on how you can implement this yourself in a matter of minutes. Let's get started. So first of all, we start off with the hypercycle of artificial intelligence. So Kaj, going to take us through that?
Yeah, look, I love new technology, but I'm always a bit of a skeptic as well, right? And especially when it comes to AI. AI has been in the conversation, mainstream conversation, for probably like 20, 30 years. But we've always heard that it's just around the corner of becoming really powerful, really great. And so this diagram, which kind of describes a hype cycle for AI, I feel like it's pretty accurate because as you can see, there's a lot of different components that make up AI. and it's still maturing. It's still getting to a point at the moment where the expectation of what AI can do isn't exactly matched with what AI can actually do yet. But what we can actually see from this is it's probably in the next 2 to 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, what AI can actually do will exceed what our expectations are. So it's just around the corner. And I think one of the key enablements at the moment is that it's become really easy to start to use AI. Because when I first started looking at it, you had to do a lot of work to build your own models, input a lot of data to build that intelligence. But now it's really easy to start to get AI working, and we're going to go through one of those examples, which is OpenAI.
Absolutely, and don't even get me started on AI and the challenges with auto-driving cars, so we can spend hours on that. So the first experiment we conducted, of course, it has to be around food and movies. We both love food. What we did was we set up a Twilio as the messaging context at the front, and we had OpenAI at the back end. Of course, we are doing this experiment with one of our colleagues based in Singapore, so the Roti Chennai had to come into picture. Of course, we argued our case to get Pavlova in, but Pavlova, we thought about, will only be New Zealand and Australia, and we would not have more dynamics to it. So that's the reason we introduced Roti Chennai, which has a lot of other levers which we can test OpenAI on. Simple experiment. We try to evaluate the content and the context of what OpenAI comes back with. But interestingly, it was very, very accurate and to the point.
But interestingly, so I'm from Sri Lanka originally, and roti and paratha are actually two different things. So I'm not sure if the AI is caught up to that nuance yet.
No, we'll get there. Hey, I'm from India, so roti and paratha has got multiple versions of variations underneath there as well. So, second experiment we conducted with OpenAI, not API, AI, was a recommendation on a movie. We went out to the search engine and tried to get some information on the movie Sholay. So if you haven't seen that, it's an Indian cult classic, like legendary movie. I highly recommend you watch it. But don't take my word for it. Ask OpenAI. That's exactly what we did. So we did simple experiment, a simple Python script. We got the script. Front end was Twilio, back end OpenAPI. OpenAPI, in turn, what it does, it goes out and makes a call to the GPT, which works at the engine at the back end, but that is transparent to the end user. So you just make a call. In the middle, we had New Relic to try and observe the traffic. Essentially, what we are trying to observe here with this experiment is what was the experience for the end customer like? So when you use OpenAPI for your end customer, you want to try and track that, hey, if my customer comes to our endpoint or a website or your digital interface, makes a search or tries and asks a question, what is that experience for them? With New Relic right at the center, you're able to observe that. And you're able to identify that, hey, was it my application or was it the actual backend API? And with that, this is what we did. So this is where with New Relic in the picture, you can go out and capture those specific details down to the trace level and identify what exactly went on. This is where we enable distributed tracing, pinpoint delays with the specific API calls which we are making at the back end. Now, how I got onto OpenAPI and learned about it?
OpenAI.
One beer. How I got onto OpenAI. I'm a nerd at heart. I've got glasses to prove it. Played a lot of Counter-Strike back in the day, played a lot of World of Warcraft. But what caught my attention was the Dota, which is the Defense of the Ancients version 1. I played a little bit of that, but more so I got onto it because I heard about this special team of bots which were powered by OpenAI. These bots were just amazing. They'd go out, play against the normal human players, and rather than just going out and shooting generic bots which spawn at the same place every time, these bots were actually very intelligent. They'd learn every game they play. And when you look at the results, so they had these bots running in, I think, year 2019 for a couple of months. These are the stats which actually came out from the bots. Just mind-blowing stats. So back in the day, I think about it, that if I was a student and if I could get bots to write my exam papers, I would have fulfilled my parents' dreams and been a doctor. But we don't have bots for that.
I think we've all disappointed our parents in that regard.
Right, but anyways, we digress. Back on the slides. What really caught my attention with OpenAI was I am a pathetic developer. I cannot code for SHIT. So I generally play around with some scripts, do a bit of troubleshooting here and there. But the GitHub Copilot, it's an amazing, amazing tool. So if you haven't used it, once again, I highly recommend you to go out, give it a try. Have a play around. It will help you. It will prompt you on when you're scripting live. So that is a brilliant peer partner when you're trying to write some simple scripts. So we've covered the experiments. We've told you about how you can use it. I'm sure you guys are way more creative than me and Kaj, and you can use OpenAI or put OpenAI to test by some awesome questions which you may ask it. But that was the experiment. But what exactly is OpenAI? OpenAI was founded in about 2015 by a guy called Elon Musk, which some of you may know or may not know. Anyways, the guy who got on the stage and broke the screen of his car, that guy. And Sam Altman from Y Combinator. The mission statement for OpenAI was to build safe, beneficial, and cost-effective API endpoints for engineers and developers out there. The latest offering from there is called DALL-E 2, well, probably based on Salvador Dali. Very, very similar naming convention to the way Elon Musk names his kids, but anyways, I digress. But yeah, so DALL-E 2 is an engine which gives you ability to go out, and from a text-based search, it would go out and create an image for you. Really powerful. But to go out and use that, you'd have to put your name in the subscription list and wait until they release that quota. The stable GPT-3, which, of course, the back end of that is Codex, which gives you the ability to translate natural text into code. So that's OpenAI in short. GPT-3, this is the actual core engine which OpenAPI calls. It was released in May 2020. It's got a total of 175 billion machine learning annotations in it, and it's continuously increasing, adding to that pool. It's able to provide you human-like text responses, and also when you type in like simple words that, hey, make this image 2 times bigger, it's able to go in and take that as a command, translate that into a code, and give you output. So how do you get started? You can go onto openapi.com. There's tutorials there. However, rather than getting into the details on how to get started, I'm going to pass the mic over to Kaj. He's actually going to take us through in the next 5 or 10 minutes on how this would all work and how you can use it.
All right, if I can actually figure out how to get this screen over.
Hey, success.
Oh, does that work? No.
Oh, no.
How do I do this?
The challenge of presenting from your own laptop.
Is it on? Nope. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there we
awesome.
go.
All right, so we talked about how to get actually started, right? So OpenAI is really straightforward and really easy to get going. So if you want to kind of play around with it, just go to openai.com. That's where I'm right now. You can sign up for a free account and really get going. So one of the key things as a developer that you want to see with any type of APIs that you're working with is the level and the quality of documentation. So what we have here within OpenAI is actually a wealth of documentation. So it's actually really easy, as a developer, it's really easy to get started. But not just that, it also actually explains some of the key concepts. So it's not just going to show you, how to use a particular method or how to use a particular endpoint, but actually explain some of the key concepts there as well. But there's also some really good examples that have already been built out. So how many of you have tried to write some SQL queries and just realized that you're not that advanced at SQL yet, right? So we've even got an example where we can actually, I saw it earlier here, where SQL translates. So you can actually describe in plain English the type of query that you want to write, and OpenAI will actually generate the SQL for it, right? So it makes it really easy to kind of get going and get started. But we also have a playground. So if you wanted to kind of play around with it, actually see kind of how it works, you would just type in your plain text description, and you can have OpenAI actually generate some keywords for it. So let's say, for example, Jay talked about the movie Sholay earlier. I haven't watched it. So I can quite easily just write a summary about Cholet. And OpenAI is going to go out, figure out what Cholet is, and actually write in real time a little summary about it. All right, so this is not something that is just copying off of Google. It's actually figuring it out and actually writing it itself. Now, that might seem pretty boring, but let's say we're at API Days here today. So let's write a poem about API Days. Now, because this is using AI, every time you write a query, it's going to give you something a little bit different. So we never know exactly what to expect. So hopefully this is something interesting. Oh, there you go. It's kind of cool. All right. So you can see the power of how quickly and easily it is to actually generate some content from OpenAI. And this is a simple example. But over here, you can go to View Code, and it actually shows you exactly how to make calls to this particular API. So it's really easy, right? So we've got a sample here for Python, but we've got a few other common languages. And all I really have to do is copy this, get an API key, drop it into my application, and we can actually start to use OpenAI. So really, really easy to get going. All right, now the hard challenge is I've got to figure out how to get back to my slides.
Whilst he's doing that, the code which he just showed you earlier, I was speaking to the Postman guys, and using Postman to try and make that query, extremely simple. Just drop the body of the JSON message into Postman, give it the right endpoint, and you're going.
All right, that was easier than I expected. All right. Maybe there's a bit of OpenAI going on over here as well. All right, so what we actually saw is OpenAI Playground. Really simple to kind of go in, get started, play around with it, write some descriptions, and see what OpenAI actually generates for that. And we saw how you can very easily get snippets of code that you can then embed into your applications to get going. This is another app that one of my colleagues has written. It's a simple app, so you basically say, name my pet. So if I just got a new puppy, click on this button, it's going to go to OpenAI and give me recommended suggestions of names for my dog. All right. So again, that's all the code that's required to enable that. Really, really straightforward. Now, we talked about observability as well. Why is observability important? So when we think about how modern software, modern architecture has evolved over time, we've gone from waterfall development to agile. We've gone from on-prem to cloud. We've gone from monolithic to microservices. But as part of that, we've also gone and shifted our mentality from, hey, I just want to monitor an application, to let's talk about observability. And what observability means is end-to-end. So it's not just looking at, my application has X number of errors. It's what does the end-to-end experience look like for users, from the very front end to all the way to the back end? Where are things actually falling down? And so it also moves from being more reactive to being more proactive as well. And a key part of that is actually to do with tracing. And for those who don't know what tracing is, think of it as being able to track an individual transaction from an end user that may be coming into your system by a web browser or a mobile app, all the way through multiple microservices, all the way to a back-end database, for example. So in this example, we have a parent trace or a span that's coming in from, let's say, a browser. It's talking to a particular service A, and we can track exactly what's happening within that service. And then that service may be calling another service, service B, and we're tracking exactly what's going on there. So the idea is we can see exactly the transaction flow for that particular customer request or a user request, and track exactly how long it takes, where errors may happen, and where delays potentially might exist. So in an example, this might be something what it looks like, right? So you have a front-end service that's talking to another service, which then talks to a number of different microservices. So we can visualize that. We can see exactly where delays may be happening, where my bottlenecks might be, where errors might be occurring. So when it comes to actually solving problems, this becomes really easy to identify exactly where that root cause is. And so going back to the example that Jay was talking about earlier, when we talk about Roti, we can actually instrument, whether it be the Twilio, we can OpenAI, we can actually see, where's that delay? Is it in my application itself, or is for whatever reason the API endpoint that's delayed. I'm getting errors, getting unexpected responses, so we can actually trace exactly where those issues might be. And so, what do we need to do, right, to instrument an AI service or in really any type of API service? So, New Relic, and we support a number of different languages in terms of instrumentation. So we just need to work with support a programming language, attach an instrumentation library, and it automatically starts to collect data about that application, exactly where those transactions flow through. Then optionally, we can add context. So context might be business context. Are we talking about roti? Are we talking about movies? Are we talking about Cholet? Might be information about customer ID, customer cohort. Just so that it's not just technical data, but we're also tying technical data to business context as well to drive value. And then we want to use distributed tracing to actually determine which parts of that journey have delays. And then lastly, we can create alerts on dependencies. So in case your application might be dependent on external APIs, so we can look at for those any delays that might be happening there as well. And with that, I'll hand over to Jay to finish up.
Perfect. Thank you, Coach. That demo was pretty powerful. Perfect. Just to summarize, guys, what we took you through was a simple experiment, I think, to give you guys ideas on how you can go out and use OpenAPI to your advantage for your end customers. I'll highly recommend you to go to the openai.com, register, have a play around. And lastly, I'd emphasize the importance of having observability for all your end customer requirements. Without observability, it's like you're driving a car without a dashboard. So once again, reiterate the fact of observability is extremely paramount. But with that, have fun. Have an awesome remainder of API days. Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. We can open space for a few questions.
Any questions?
This is a great topic.
Thank you.
And there's been a lot of talk about benefits and risks about AI, and now we actually accept the fact it's a reality. And how do you see the next 5 years? What does it look like with OpenAI?
Next 5 years, I'd say the curve, as Kaj mentioned at the start, it's at the bottom. It's going to exceed. You'd see AI come up in conversations more prevalent. May it be driving cars, may it be answering your phone, may it be putting your phone on hold, and an AI assistant would be holding that call for you. The usage is paramount, but around the security side of things, I think only time will tell on how secure we make the platform. It's up to us, the dev community, to go out and utilize it in the right fashion. So the onus is on us for that.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, what we saw was an example of OpenAI GPT3. GPT-4 is about to come out as well, so you'll probably see significant improvements over what's available today already. So the way that any technology kind of improves over time is leaps and bounds. So we should be seeing some really exciting stuff coming down the road.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. You have a question? Yes, sir.
In the past, we've seen racist bots have emerged from bad actors on the internet training them in dodgy ways. Is that still a reality? Is that still a danger in the future?
I think it is, right? So I think all of these learning models are based on the data that's fed into it. So a lot of those examples are basically because it's those bots are trolling the internet, and the internet is full of those kind of things, right? So I think there is work cut out in the future to be able to actually make it because when you're teaching someone something, it's based on observability. Same way as a child that grows up, it's based on the environment that it's surrounded by. So I think there is dangers in that as well, but I think there's something that we'll have to kind of learn from and kind of improve as well.
Thanks, gentlemen. Round of applause to Jay and Kaj.